talk about creating safe spaces in Castro.
Did somebody say recovery?
Let's talk about meetings, sex and recovery.
Sober sex? Did somebody say dick?
Let's talk about mental health. Let's talk about...
Welcome. You are at the CCC.
Where there are no outside issues with Bonnie Violet.
And Lulu.
And Dominic. Oh, sorry.
Wait your turn. I told you she's coming for my gig.
I know.
Each week we will provide and create a brave space where we engage in conversation around topics of recovery.
And our intention is to inspire better spaces for more people in recovery.
By tackling topics used to separate us.
And so before we do that, please like and comment and share this episode. Sit around the fire and share this episode. It's all good. How are you doing, Bonnie?
I'm good. I feel so far away because but I'm in Idaho.
Absolutely. The show must go on. It's like, that's what I'm talking about, commitment. I'm going to show up hell or high water. Okay. So
it's nice that we have the ability to do that.
Exactly. So we have a returning guest in the studio since the seat was empty. Hi, Dominique.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm good. You all booted me off the island, but I'm back.
We booted you off the island. So before going, how's your week been, Bonnie? I mean, it's like you are in the Midwest. Is that correct?
Well, Idaho. It's not Iowa or Ohio. It's the other one. But Idaho is like in the Northwest. It's like 110 degrees here. But I haven't, what's that?
No, I said same difference. Go ahead.
Right. I haven't been home in this area for like 3 years, so it's been nice to just kind of get connected with family and friends. It's been great.
Does it feel different or the same? You know how when you leave an area for a while and then new buildings pop up and what have you?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of different, but a lot of the same. You know how it goes.
Absolutely. You feel more powerful. Do you feel more powerful standing in like showing up, being your authentic self?
I do. I'm a lot more I'm just really comfortable with myself, even though like I'm just now talking to people about being trans and they're just learning things. Like I'm having these conversations over and over and over. But it's just felt really good, and I've actually felt really more confident and excited about it than kind of like anxious or nervous.
Right on. David said they're living in their own private Idaho. You look really punk too. I'm all focusing on you.
Hi, David.
The week was really good for me. Honestly, it's like just work and no drama. I'm like this. It's like if there's no surprises in the week, I'm good. Yeah. And I feel strong in myself all the time. I mean, it's easy to do that in San Francisco. It's like it's once you leave the city limits. Dominic, how are you doing? Thank you for coming back to us, even though we voted you off the island.
I'm doing great. My week was also awesome. We just got back from water rafting.
I know, I saw pictures.
And that was a lot of fun too. The waters was not that thrilling as it was before.
Well, I hear that if you go later, like in August or so, that
the rapids are a little bit more intense. So I'm probably gonna go again in August. But it was a lot of fun, as it always is. Some people left because it was too hot that evening of Saturday.
We're a piece of work. Like,
they decided to leave and come back here in the cold.
I know exactly.
And like as soon as they left, maybe like an hour after, it started to cool down a lot.
That's crazy. Like this is the only area in the country that's cool.
Yeah.
I'm all okay. Whatever. It's like it's all good. Jesus loves us.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So our topic today is brave spaces.
Absolutely. And yes, this one's trying to come for our gig. So just a little context. So when we were thinking about this, when we were thinking about doing the podcast, I remember we had a conversation about safe spaces, and Bonnie was so generous in talking, and helping me to understand this new idea of brave spaces. And maybe you want to talk about that a little, like the difference between a safe space and a brave space.
Yeah, sure. The idea when we talk about brave space, it kind of makes it kind of, I guess, infers that safe space isn't real. Like it's not really something that we can create. And I think there's a lot of times where, especially like in marginalized communities or recovery communities, where we say it's a safe space, but it's not something that we can really control. And so I think in some ways we're almost setting people up like to come in extra vulnerable, and then they get hurt, instead of the idea with the brave space is that you're coming into a space knowing that we are, we want to be safe, as in we want to be respectful, we want to be mindful, but we also want to recognize that things might be said, or there might be an experience that hits us all differently, and that might be uncomfortable for some and not for the others. And like we can just kind of share from our own experience and let others share from theirs as well. And then if something did happen that kind of felt icky or didn't feel right for somebody, then we could talk about it.
We don't have liability for it.
Right. But at least people know. And I think the idea of brave spaces is like, to me, like bravery is kind of like courage. And courage is like, it's like, it doesn't mean you're not afraid. It means that you're afraid, but you keep moving anyway, or you keep doing the thing. And so I think that's also bravery. So I think that's the idea of like, you might be scared. It might be an uncomfortable situation, but let's try to lean into this, and for the sake of growing.
Absolutely. What are your thoughts on I know you were asking, it's like, what's this topic and what does it mean?
Well, brave spaces is a new idea and term for me. Like I understand what safe spaces are, and I feel like a lot of people advocate for this is a safe space for you, and come talk about whatever you want to talk about, and no judgment, and all that stuff. And I think similar to what you said, I feel like kind of sets up people in a way to come vulnerable. And safe spaces are always as safe as we want to create them or have them out to be. So I feel like thinking about them in the idea of brave spaces kind of puts the accountability on the person who's entering there, like mentally preparing, like I'm about to enter a space that I'm unsure of. And so like, how do I prepare myself to do that? And as you were explaining, I was brought to an experience I had like early in the pandemic. I went to go hook up with someone who I later found out was using drugs. And I got there and he gave me all the signs, and but I did what I did, and then I left. And I also mentally prepared to go into that, and I prayed a little bit before that, just in case, as I usually do. But I did a little bit more extra just because the pictures he sent me seemed a little bit of that era, of that aesthetic. But I mentally prepared for myself for that, and like the possibility, as I usually do. And it was true. Like he gave me all the signs, and it smelled like it, and it looked like it. And then after I left, I felt like I was high, just because being in the environment like that brought up all these emotions and feelings and all these files in the back of my head. And I was like sweating and clenching my jaw. I was like, oh my God, what is happening?
Is this the first time you're talking about it, or were you able to talk about it with someone else?
I've talked about it with my sponsor and also friends in the program, but and it's something that a lot of us have experienced. And my goal and my intentions and my motives and where I'm at is I prefer not to hook up or have sex with or have partners who are using particular drugs, just for my own safety. Also, last night I was gonna go hook up with somebody, and we've been chatting for maybe like 2 or 3 weeks. And I asked him if he
you chat that long?
Well, it's like offline. It's like I'll reply and then don't respond and whatever. But I asked him if he parties, and he says no, but I do pot. I was like, okay, whatever, that's fine. So I got there last night after we chatted again.
White pot and a weird pipe, huh?
And before I got there, he was like, my place is a little messy. I'm about to do laundry. I was like, okay, whatever. So then I got there and I see like trash everywhere. And then he reaches up and puts away like a little bubbler. I was like, and he says, you're okay with pot, right? And I was like, yeah, but I'm not okay with crystal. And he's like, this is not a crystal pipe. I was like, this is not a crystal pipe. This is a pot pipe. I was like, I know what it looks like.
I was born in the afternoon, not this one. Yeah.
So then I left.
Oh, so well, then you get to you've experienced some growth in that whole thing.
Well, yeah, like, and I always give people the benefit of the doubt and like the possibility that people are going to use drugs. And so I try to prepare myself for that. And if something ever crosses the line for me, then I have the opportunity to leave. And that's what I did last night.
Absolutely. For my end, with regards to this idea of brave spaces and safe spaces, I realize, like, and we've talked about this before, like, okay, so issues of race and politics and all that good stuff. I've always, and I don't know where this comes from, and I'm grateful that I have it maybe as a gift from my parents or my higher power, but I've always tried to be measured in how I talk, communicate, and I don't want to jump to conclusions if someone says the wrong thing. Like for me, I want to be able to make mistakes. I want to be able to stumble through when I'm learning about new things. Just like with a lot of trans issues, I still have a lot of work to do. But if I am afraid or if I'm uncomfortable, if I think that somebody's going to automatically label me as transphobic because I say the wrong thing, then it makes it hard to open my mouth and say. And for me, I've always wanted to create this kind of energy around me that says, I'm gonna pay attention to your intent. I'm gonna listen to what you have to say, and then if you're willing to talk about it after, if you're willing to have a discussion about why you're wrong, about why you maybe we're not right, then I think that that's where we get to kind of grow, and that's what I think about with brave spaces. Like I'm surrounding myself with folks who we all have the same kind of. We're moving in the same direction. We may be in different places in our understanding of it, but I want you to know that I genuinely want to learn, and I'm messy. And if I ask you a question that doesn't kind of sound, please forgive me and allow me to be my humanity in that moment. But I'm open to having you kind of correct me, just like we were saying. Let's kind of do some self-correcting on air. If we step off the track, let's show people what it looks like to kind of gracefully, your word, gracefully put somebody back on track.
Mm-hmm. And I like you also taking compliment on your end, but I think it's also important for people when they are correcting you is to do it with like care and like educational responding. Like not be like you can't fucking say that but like not to be
I think you can say that. Yeah.
But like if someone's gonna correct you, to not come at you the wrong way.
Yeah.
And it takes both people in order for us to move forward, because if someone's gonna correct you in that way, then that just shuts you down.
Yes.
Right. And it's like it's assume good intent. So like assume that we are all coming into the space with good intent. However, I might, you might experience a microaggression, or you might, and the person who is performing it, I guess, is that what you're doing? Isn't maybe aware. And then you're able to kind of say, whoa, that really is not cute. And this is why. And that person should be able to say, oh, I'm sorry, and listen, and that's just kind of like an agreement that we all have, is that we'll like call each other in rather than kind of calling each other out.
I like that, calling each other in rather than calling each other out.
Yeah. David is saying we can all learn more, do better. We'll make mistakes. It's about intention, kind, open-mindedness, intention, even when we might be messy. Yep.
Absolutely, because it's like, I mean, I feel like, the more that I failed, it means the more that I took that chance, that I took that risk to kind of move out of my comfortable space into a space that was going to help me to kind of grow. And I like what you were saying. It's about kind of our intentions. A place where I get a lot of practice is like with my close friends. Like I have a friend, we'll call him Tree. Y'all know. I love him to jazz. But we have moments where it shows up for him as humor, but he doesn't understand a lot of times that humor brings up something in me that is uncomfortable. And so I'm able to lovingly say, you know, this is not okay. And I'm going to tell you why it's not okay. I mean, for me, a valuable lesson that I've had to learn in recent years is that, you know, I was giving people permission to, in essence, disrespect me. Because when I would just laugh off certain microaggressions, or when I would just minimalize it or whatever. And the responsibility is mine. It's like I get to say, this is no longer comfortable for me. You know, I'm not trying to change you. I'm just simply trying to change me. It doesn't work for me. But when I do that work outside of like whatever this space that we have is designated, then I'm able to come in not just with the intention, because it's great to want to create a brave space, but if you don't have, you know, if you don't have some experience with it, I mean, we're all going to stumble through. I mean, that's why facilitators, or someone who has kind of experience with that is very helpful.
Yeah, but I think, you know, a lot of offenders are ignorant to what they're causing. And so until somebody tells them, they're probably going to continue to doing the same thing. And that's not always, but oftentimes people, I want to say, don't know better, or they haven't thought, I mean, they just haven't, you know what I mean? They haven't been exposed in the correct way, or they haven't had to think about some of these things, and they'll continue not thinking about them because they haven't had to, and nobody's telling them anything different. And so everything just continues going like it's always gone, and nothing changes. And
but there also comes to a point where there also comes to a point to where you continue to correct someone and they continue the same behavior, and sometimes it comes at the cost of the relationship. Like, I've had experiences where I have to multiply correct someone, and it was not understood or internalized in the way that I had hoped. And I approached the conversation in the most respectful way. And it was many times, and there was just no understanding on their end. And so in order to maintain that kind of respect that I have for myself and the other person, I had to kind of end that relationship with them, because I'm not going to continue to put myself in that kind of situation, and I can only do so much.
Yeah. And that's not to, it's never really anybody's offenders, you know, the person offended, it's never really their place to have to do these sorts of things. But I think the idea is, when you go into this brave space, it's kind of like you're all going there with the idea that we're wanting to be better with one another, which is a little bit different than if you're like kind of not in that brave space kind of agreement.
And I also think, going back to you, Bonnie, with you being in Idaho, and the idea of brave spaces, if you want to talk about that. Because I remember we talked a little about it in the front of the country club, and I feel like this is a super relevant topic to what you're kind of experiencing, or what you're going to experience when you're down in Idaho with family.
Yeah, I mean, you just have to think about what I'm wearing and where I'm going to go, and like who I'm with. And so it's, you know, it's definitely not San Francisco. So, and I try to not like change any of those sorts of things, you know? But, you know, it's just, you know, at some point you have to also just be wise.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like, yes, maybe you shouldn't have to, but you still could get harmed. So it's like,
you shouldn't have to. We're not there yet. And so it's like, I think that for your peace of mind, obviously there are those who are willing to kind of be, you know, what's the best way to say, to rebel, to kind of stand out, or to kind of challenge the system, challenge what's there. And I say more power to you. I think that we talked about before, there are those who kind of don't feel like it's their responsibility to be patient with folks who aren't figuring it out. Like, figure it out for yourself. And I just am going to continue to go on record that for me, I've gone through those periods, but now I realize that I have a responsibility. I have a responsibility that when someone genuinely, and I can't tell you what genuine looks like for each person. I get to, for me, for my peace of mind, I get to go on a case by case basis and decide how important that relationship is to me. Right. But when it is important, I get to be that person, that guide, that black bear, that you know that guide to help someone kind of come to a better understanding, because I think that there are, like you said, there are a lot of folks, they don't know. And
Mhm.
I have always been of the mindset that if I don't know, why am I going to make a change, And
Yep.
for me, also on that same token, it's like, as much as I want to be upset with you for having the privilege of not having to experience that or whatever, I can't do that. I can't. I want to love you and welcome you in, as you put it. I said it a different way, Welcome
Yeah.
in.
And I think there's a lot of, there's potentially more to gain if you're willing to kind of jump into that brave space. Like, for instance, like, I haven't talked with my family and friends about my transness or that sort of stuff for like 3 years. And in doing that, I just grew further and further distant from them. And I was making assumptions that they couldn't handle it, or they, would think blah, 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 or whatever. And so I was kind of robbing them of that same experience as well, and for the most part, everyone's been really great. Even my brother called me today and was like, hey, because my nephews are with their grandma, and they're like, grandma said she'll bring the boys, and I told her, like, that she might get a call from Bonnie, or, and he just goes, just be yourself, and
Oh, I love that.
yeah, it was really magical.
I think that, like, on that same token, it's like there's a level of patience that is required, like, for all of this. It's like, because, like, we like, I think about me, I like, with coming out as gay and dealing with my own issues of homophobia or whatever. It took me a while to get comfortable, to get to a comfortable place, and finding myself or whatever. And it would, to me, it's not fair. I thought it's not fair for me to expect someone else who maybe is not living their life the way that I am to automatically understand. Now, mind you, I don't have to stick around and hear the negativity or whatever. But if you're genuinely making an effort, to kind of understand and not just tolerate, but realize that, this is who I am. This is who I am, and I'm gonna be proud.
And Nora says it also depends on what level the relationship is taken into consideration, which is a lot of what
Absolutely. Absolutely, you're right, Nora. It's like it's that thing. I don't owe anybody anything. It's like what I give you is a gift from me. Like it's a gift, and if I love you enough, and if I love me enough, and I want to work through that, then by all means, I'm going to do the work. But you don't have to do the work. You don't have to feel compelled to try to change the world. Sometimes you just are. You just be.
And oftentimes we're just existing. Like,
Yeah,
my
exactly.
goal isn't to change the world. I'm just trying to live, just like anyone else who ends up getting into this position where, like, me being trans doesn't need to be an issue.
Exactly.
But it kind of is.
Your transness and your living your life daily should not be an act of, what is it? An act of,
Zen.
well, Zen, no, but I was thinking it's like, it shouldn't be revolutionary. It should
Right.
just, yeah.
Yep.
So what
And a
about
lot
you?
of people experience that, I think, with, race and other gender, and, even like mental health. A lot of things that are stigmatized or marginalized, a lot of the times our lives become this thing that it doesn't really necessarily need to, it shouldn't be, but that's just the way it is.
Yeah. And I mean, like, do either of you always felt like meetings have been safe and brave spaces
At times.
as a Black man and as a trans person?
At times, but I've also had different experience. Like, I've always felt like I belong wherever I am, within reason, of course, because I can get choked or or shot. I'm not saying that the cops do that, but yeah, they do it. No, so there are some meetings, there are some places that I go to, and I instantly don't feel comfortable, and I think that when I'm right with me, I kind of trust that energy, that vibe. Like, I was in a meeting, and this is my stuff. I realize it was my stuff, but the issue of privilege came up because a person. I think I shared about this last time. It's like, maybe I got to do some work around it because I still got a resentment. They were talking about if you ever get a chance to go to this meeting in Australia, there's a day meeting on the beach and whatever. And I'm like, seriously? Whatever. Am I going to ride to the airport in my Bentley and fly over in my, no. Okay. See,
you get on your private jet.
See there. No, I got past it, but I've in that moment I was like, this is not for me, because I wasn't listening for the similarities. I was only paying attention to what was different, and I had to do some work around that. I absolutely love that individual as and I realized it wasn't about him. It was just whatever.
A meeting on the beach sounds wonderful.
Oh, absolutely. Are you kidding? I can probably go now, but I didn't see that for me then.
See all the big spiders and the big snakes.
And when I don't think we have to expect that every space is a brave space, it's like I think for me, it was important to know that there are these brave spaces that I can be in with people who are in that same area. But I think it's also important for me to realize that I'm not going into a safe space into a meeting. Like, I can't really, it's not wise for me to not be a little cautious or to expect that no harm or nothing that's not okay is going to happen in that space. It would be
absolutely
not very wise for me to not know that. And I think when I first came into sobriety, there was often some times when I probably came in a lot more vulnerable than maybe I should have in some spaces. And I learned real quick that I needed to adjust a little bit.
Absolutely. It's I think that especially in meetings or self-help groups or anything, you go in initially with this idea that it's going to be safe and you can talk about what you want. And I've heard that and it's a beautiful thing. It's a perfect program. It's not a perfect fellowship. We're flawed. We're completely flawed. And I have always been the type where I was I'm not going to use names or whatever, but I usually will tell a story to make a point and talk about the experience. And if it's too close to the person, I mean, it's even that can be kind of a compromising. So yeah, I like this idea, not to give people this false impression that it's a safe space, but it's a brave space. And one other thing that I was going to say, it's I think that also allowing people their time to get to a place where they're able to kind of be courageous, like I said, it takes time. And sometimes it's going into these so-called brave spaces and finding somebody who has already been there and getting some of that inspiration from them. That to me, that's a lot of times that's what's inspired me.
And I think sometimes you have to be beyond your hurt. So you have to be kind of healed in those places before you can probably be too courageous, because otherwise you're just going to keep harming yourself, and that's not going to be good for you. Sorry, Dominique, go ahead.
Well, I was just remembering I was at a CMA meeting in Berkeley on a Saturday, and someone shared from the floor who has maybe 6 years of recovery or 7 years, and he says that he goes to AA and ACA for recovery, and he comes to CMA for the fellowship because CMA doesn't have good recovery. And he was saying this at a CMA meeting in front of a bunch of newcomers and so on and so on. Then he backed it up and justified it by saying, my sponsor agrees with me. And so then after he shared, I raised my hand and I said, I think that CMA has great fellowship. My sponsor has great recovery. My fellows have great recovery. There are numerous people in the program in this room right now and in the program at large of CMA who have great recovery. And by him saying that, I felt like he was not creating a safe space or creating a space where people can speak up and talk about what they're experiencing as a newcomer or someone who has some time who's experiencing whatever that they might be experiencing. And it's someone who can be kind of problematic sometimes. But
I love that word, problematic.
I did not raise my hand and say that in a way to be counteractive or be argumentative, but in a way to represent the program in a way that it should be represented. Because Lewis has great recovery, Bonnie, you have great recovery, Brandon has great recovery, and we're all part of CMA.
Right.
Spill my tea, I see.
Well, I think a big a big part of that too is like, there are those kind of rules and guidelines we talk about alcohol when we're in AA. We talk about, you know what I mean? Like, and that's why those sorts of things are set up, so that when people are brand new and they're only able to see like one issue or one thing that they're, you know what I mean? It just becomes a little bit confusing or about something else.
Yeah. And there's also some things that I've been thinking about as well, like jargons that we talk about in recovery. My friend Danny is a recently drug counselor. And in his education and in his learning before being a drug counselor, he learned about how 12-step abstinence recovery worked for about 5 to 20% of the people who come through the rooms. And just because they are wired that way, they are wired to be abstinent from drugs and alcohol. And then I thought about how we say, oh, she just doesn't get it, or he just doesn't get it, or he keeps relapsing, and et cetera, et cetera. And there's kind of like this expectation that 12-step abstinence has that works for the 5 to 20% of the people, that does not work for the rest. And the rest kind of tries to live up to that expectation. They just don't get in. They keep on relapsing. And I feel like that causes more trauma and more drama for them. And that's something I've been thinking about recently because I had a sponsee who lives in Hawaii. I did have a sponsee, and we came to realize that by him smoking pot helps him to not use crystal. And I was like, well, then keep on smoking pot and do what you need to do. If that's not the thing that is making you get in car accidents, making you late for work or missing work or whatever it is, then keep on doing that. And recovery comes in all forms. It's not just 12-step abstinence. You can go to Refuge Recovery. You can go to Dharma Recovery. There's all these other programs that people can go to and find what works for them.
Exactly.
And I have been alluding to this at some level in my shares, but I've also just been kind of harping back because I'm thinking about the newcomer.
Yeah. Well, no, there's a definite way to express this. What I say is like, so in the beginning, it is important to focus in on what's the important, like the not drinking and not using.
Mhm.
And then you move on to the emotional part of it, because it takes a while for you to figure out that it's not about what you used. It's about why you used. It's about why you're doing what you're doing. And after a while, you get to a certain point where it's all about the maintenance now. It's not so much that I'm freaking out because, I've recovered from this idea of feeling like I need this and need that to shut me down. I've got something else to fill the void. And recovery becomes everything, about everything you do. It's about taking time with your friends and laughing, about making sure you get to work on time, wearing clean clothes, not going over to somebody's house that puts a bubbler away, walking in Idaho, being your true authentic self unapologetically. It's about all of that stuff, because those are the things that affect you mentally and can take you out of yourself. And I was reading in the 4 Agreements, a sin is anything that goes against yourself. Like,
Yeah.
I'm trying to be this best version of Lewis that I can possibly be. And if I'm getting caught up in things that kind of take me out of that, then, I'm selling myself short. I'm compromising who I want to become. So
Yeah.
That's a great thing you said, ending that. What was that about the sin?
a sin is anything that goes against yourself.
I like that.
Yeah, no, well, that's not mine. I got it from 4 Agreements.
Yours.
Yeah, no, I would claim it.
Yeah. Some people will say too, like, is anything that takes you away from your higher power.
Absolutely.
That's sin. So go ahead.
When I was telling Dominic about the topic, I also threw in creative spaces. I like that. Like we were talking about safe spaces, brave spaces, and creative spaces.
And sex. That's what you text
And
me.
sex. And sex, because it's like, if we run out of things to talk about, we will talk about sex. But you notice that was the first thing Dominic threw in. It's like, seriously? It's like, I see.
I mean, that was the most relevant thing that came to my mind in relationship to safe and brave spaces. That happened recently. Just because, like, I've been doing more work around my sex life and doing more thoughts around it. Like, I thought that I had a sex addiction when I came in because I am a sex tweaker, but thinking about sex as something so natural that was gifted to me and that I can use at any time.
Yeah.
And then how crystal and sex became together sex being the natural and crystal being the unnatural, and they come to combine, and crystal being the thing that overpowers everything, I thought about sex as an addiction. I don't think sex is the actual addiction. I think it's the kind of obsession that I have behind like hunting and like the excitement of the new partners. And I don't think it's sex itself. I think it's just my obsession to everything that I have in my life.
Yeah, sex is a beautiful thing. It can be a beautiful thing, especially if you're not freaking out about having it all the time.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say something. It's like that's where there was.
I had something really amazing to say, but it went somewhere else.
I think you're going to compliment Lewis on Lewis here and Lewis up here.
Oh my. No, we talked about that last time. Brandon sent at the table. That's right. So that picture would be there. So that's fine.
I think another. Sorry, the thing this is the thing that I was remembering is that, I think, at least for me, from my experience, I think like Lewis kind of alluded to or said that, like there was some other reason why I was drinking and using or why I played out in these addictive behaviors is because I wasn't addressing the other issues. I wasn't addressing my trauma. I wasn't addressing, just a lot of different things. And I was using all these other things to kind of solve me and comfort me and, all that sort of stuff. And so I think that's where, and it's hard because those sorts of things can also be really good for us. And even if they are comforting us and solving us and all that sort of stuff, that's okay. And that's good, maybe to a point. And I think those are things that we have to get to a point where we can just be really honest and aware enough of ourselves that we can actually really know that when I'm yearning or feeling lonely, what am I feeling yearning or what am I really lonely for? Instead of just like going to sex when I just need to like hang out with someone or need to talk on the phone with someone or, and I think that just kind of comes in time and kind of getting to know, oh, this is that thing that my body's telling me I need or would benefit from. And then now what do I do about it?
Love addiction is a real thing, says Raul. Of course it is. Absolutely. I mean, it's like love is something that like, yeah, no, it's natural to have love or to want love or whatever. But I think that depending on if we were raised by wolves or not, or how we learn love, that's how we participate or how we practice love. And so I think that in tying to something that I was going to say before I read that, I think that I lost my thought. So somebody help me out here.
Hi, Jimmy. Jimmy's there too. We haven't said hi to Jimmy yet.
Hi, Jimmy. Hi, Jimmy. I know that saved me. No. I mean, it was. I was going back to this idea of brave spaces. Like, do you think that like it's fair to say that the onus or the responsibility in a lot of ways is on us? Like for me to kind of get to understand like my feelings, how I'm feeling about something, whether or not having anxiety or whether, because I can't go into a space and expect to get out of it what I want from it if I'm not 100% or ready. If I'm weak, and weak is not the right word. If I don't have the bandwidth, then maybe the responsibility is mine not to step into those spaces or step into those spaces and keep quiet until such time where I feel like I can do. And I think you said it earlier. It's like, there's some healing that needs to take place. I've got some work to do for myself. And that's usually how it is. It's like, I always say, if I'm not comfortable with something, like if I'm not ready to share it with another person, it stays in my head. And I scramble around, do what I have to, therapy, whatever. And then when I'm ready, then I will bring it. And ad nauseum at meetings, I will talk about it. I'll talk about it, but wheels come off, And because I realize that it not only helps me, it may help someone else. And I don't know what I do or when I do it, that's gonna like affect someone else. So I bring it to the surface so that I don't hold on to it. I give it back to the universe.
Yeah, it all starts with me. That's something that's often heard in recovery circles.
Absolutely. It sounds like a song.
And I'm here.
Nora also added that you have to be present.
Oh, absolutely. It's tough in the beginning. So if you are someone who is like listening, it's definitely, it takes a lot of energy when you first get to that place where you realize you want to be present. But yeah, no, but it becomes worth it doing all of this work, no matter the energy that it requires.
Being present is important. When I came in and I was like sitting in class and I wasn't really paying attention, I would like be present, and like that brought like almost a high over me, because it can be really distracting when I'm in my head just thinking about everything, and then when I tell myself to be present, just pay attention, just be there in like all kinds of settings. If I just tell myself to be present, it's amazing how much that takes away from my head, and that I can actually just be there and pay attention and be receptive to what I'm hearing and participate in a way that's conducive to the setting in the room, wherever I might be.
I tell you one way we can be present, participating in this 45-minute podcast, because we dive in and now all of a sudden it's like we're down to the wire. So I want to tell you, you know how you can get in touch with me so you can tell me what you think we should talk about? You can reach me at my Instagram at LouisLou86. Yeah, it's LouisLou86. And there's some fun pictures there. You can see drag stuff, but you can also like direct message me. Slide in my DMs, baby.
And if you ever want to reach out to me, you can search for a queer chaplain on any of the socials, and you should be able to find me. And how about you, Dominic? Where can we find you?
Where can they find you other than the what's that place?
At my OnlyFans /
Buena Vista Park. Yeah.
You can find me on Instagram at DOMIUH, or Facebook. Or if you have my number, you can text me or call me.
Oh yeah, text her. Yeah. Be careful, because there are different tiers of those, like depending on how.
No, you spelled it wrong, Brandon. DOMIUH.
DOMIUH.
Fired.
What do you think, Bonnie?
I was just laughing, I think.
Yeah. So we want you to know that the Castro Country Club is a clean and sober gathering place for all people and a home for the queer recovery community. We're located in the heart of the Castro district of San Francisco, and we endeavor to be a space where all can seek wisdom, serenity, courage, and joy. You'll find more information at castrocountryclub.org.
And you can tune in each week at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on YouTube and or Facebook at Castro Country Club. We'd love to have you join us live and participate in the conversation.
Absolutely. And look for us at the CCC, wherever you listen to podcasts.
And please do something with our pipe, our speak pipe.
Absolutely.
We haven't got a message since our first episode, so
I know. It's like the maybe they're worried because the first person who left the message ended up being our guest the following week.
Right. No, thank you. Yeah, so you can leave us a voicemail at SpeakPipe, and then we can include that in an upcoming episode, or we could just use it as a prompt for us as well. So.
Absolutely. And email us at podcast@castrocountryclub.org.
And
and don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, follow us.
To share and follow. And then, thanks so much for joining us today, Jimmy and Nora and David and Raul. I think I got everyone. Thank you so much for.
Absolutely. And thank you, Dominic. We love you.
I know. You'll be on again.
we'll have you chime in from
the going away
North
episode.
Texas.